a couple of the Dragon Bravo fire as well as the White Sage fire. Two large fires that I'm going to kind of talk about most of my time today. Okay, so we're going to talk just really briefly about the fires themselves, just some real quick facts. But I want to spend most of my time talking about the post-fire recovery process on natural forest system lands, and then I'm going to take that and apply it to the in response to these fires specifically. What are the actions that we're actually taking up there right now? And then we're going to talk about the other forest operations because kind of the show must go on. So a couple of details on the fires. Dragon Bravo got all the headlines, national news, #1 fire across the country. But there was before that started, about a week earlier than that, or actually after the Dragon Bravo started, there was another fire that initiated on BLM land, White Sage fire. Lightning strike just west of the Kaibab National Forest. They're up red dot on this thing now.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Up here. Initiated right on the west side on BLM acres on the yellow acres there, quickly spread to the north end of the North Kaibab Ranger District, working through Ponderosa Pine, Spinach Juniper, and then burning through some cheatgrass that had popped up in response to some earlier fires, Mangum Fire and the Swamp Fire years ago. But almost 59,000 acres, most of it on the Kaibab, and most of that had been previously burned. Just before then, on July 4th, Dragon Bravo's fire started on National Park Service acres down here and quickly spread north and east. Within another week or 10 days, it spread onto National Forest System lands and moved quickly north into Saddle Mountain Wilderness and all the way up. 145,000 acres, really large fire, over half of which was on the Kaibab National Forest. This was one of those long duration fires. Initially, we called 100% containment, not until like October, but most of the actual fire progression worked through August. Slightly heavier fuels, mixed conifer, ponderosa pine, and a pinyon juniper. So two large destructive fires we had to deal with last summer, and these fires are still eating my lunch every single day today. So I want to talk a little bit about the forest recovery process on National Forest System lands. Several steps. Some of those start as soon as lightning strikes and we declare a wildfire. So we're going to talk about the role of resource advisors and the suppression repair process, which happens while smoke's in the air, while things are burning, while acres are being taken. After that, we move quickly into the burned area emergency response process, or BEAR. That's still while the fire is ongoing and moving. After the fire is put out, it moves into a third phase called the burned area rehabilitation, and then finally disaster recovery and that post-fire restoration that we're currently working on. So let's talk about resource advisors. These are wildland firefighters. They don't work for the incident management team, the team that's actually working on the fire. They work for the agency, the owning unit of the fire itself. They're for the agency administrators, but they work closely hand in hand with that incident management team and everybody that's on that fire. So it's during fire suppression, active smoke in the air. They need to understand how the teams work, how fire works, and how destructive some of these fires can be. Go back one. Sorry. So there's a lot of activities that these individuals work on. For example, the resource advisors know the values at risk on the fire, and they're there to protect those resources. So while the fire's out there burning, they may be protecting cultural sites. They may be recommending, like we did a lot of structural wrapping of sweat lodges, archaeological sites, actually wrapping them in the stuff that looks kind of like tinfoil and pulling fuels away and cutting fuels away, working with the incident management team to get that work done. So if fire does move through that area, maybe some of those cultural resources are protected. They may be working in front of a bulldozer. If a bulldozer is pushing line, we send those resource advisors out in front of in front of the dozer. They may be identifying arc sites so that the dozer doesn't destroy those. They may be looking for a pedicactus. In the case of the White Sage and Dragon Bravo fire, this listed cactus that is extremely sensitive. We want to make sure those dozers aren't damaging those plants, as well as other sensitive sites for wildlife habitat or activities like that. Also, while that fire is burning, the incident management team is also doing things like wrapping structures up here to protect them, or reinforcing fuel breaks, actually cutting the existing fuel breaks we have in the past to make them a little more defensible, a little stronger. So While that work is ongoing, we also have a group doing what we call suppression repair, and this is the repair that's happening while the incident is still active. It could be we had to put a bunch of dozer lines out there. Well, before we're going to let the incident management team leave, we need to make sure that those dozer lines are pushed back in place so that we don't have any type of water issues or erosion issues moving forward. This work's ongoing, and it's paid for by the incident. They may be doing a lot of road maintenance. They may be mitigating some hazard trees if there are hazard trees that have imminent risk of failure, as well as rehabbing like the incident command post or the dip sites, staging areas, just to kind of put the incident itself to bed. So then when it comes back to the forest, we don't have a whole lot of work on our hands. That moving into that next phase, the second block now is the burned area emergency response, or BEAR. This is a process of the kind of those first steps towards getting these forests on a track towards recovery. And if you look at the term burned area emergency response, we're really not talking about rehabilitation, restoration, or recovery yet. We're talking about emergency response. So this is something that's triggered when fires hit 500 acres. They get a little bit bigger. Their role of these BEAR group, this BEAR team, is to identify activities we can take right now to control soil loss and water loss. Again, we're not really working on restoration yet even. We're just doing triage. We're just trying to keep it from roads from getting blown apart and culverts from getting blown apart before that first active storm really hits. Now, if you know anything about the desert Southwest, the fires come in June, and in July we hope we get monsoons. So we really don't have a lot of time to get much work done in the Southwest. This year, however, fortunate or unfortunately, we didn't have a very active monsoon system, and so a lot of the damage that's usually done by those monsoons, storms immediately post-fire, didn't really happen. In addition to that, we really didn't get a heavy snowpack either. So usually with we get the storms come in July, and snow in the winter, and then when the snow melts, we get another source of erosion and damage to some of these resources. We didn't really see either of those this year, but we still have a lot of these practices in place that we've been able to put on the ground. So what is the BEAR team supposed to do? They're supposed to assess the situation that's out there and identify some specific things they can do, and then they're supposed to implement those activities and then monitor them. This is a picture of just an example. This is something that happened in October. That's an ash flow that flowed over the 8910 road in House Rock Valley that is in response to the Dragon Bravo fire. So these are the kinds of things we're trying to avoid: ongoing maintenance and a bunch of road work and a bunch of ash that is eventually going to end up in the Colorado River is what we're trying to avoid. So they do things like get out in the field and assess the soil burn severity. How intense was that fire on the soil itself? We're not talking about the vegetation yet. We're just talking about the soil. So did that fire come and did it really camp and park and cook the soil so that it's hydrophobic, so water just slides right off of it? Water can't soak into that soil, or did it just kind of blow past really quickly? And what we see with White Sage fire is the first of the two fires I'm going to talk about is we didn't see that intense of soil burn severity. In the center, we saw a lot of unburned or undamaged areas or very extremely low. And inside this right here, that's because this scar right here is the Mangum fire that happened a few years ago. So when we have a frequent fire, not a lot of heavy fuels in the ground because they got burned up by a previous fire, we see lower soil burn severity. And then outside of that previous fire, now we have the outskirts here where you see more yellow. That's the White Sage fire, where we did see a little more intense, moderate, and some high soil burn severity, but only so much. In a 50,000 acre fire, we only had 1,500 acres that were in that high level of soil burn severity. What about Dragon Bravo now? A little bit more severe, and this map right here. This is only the Forest Service National Forest System lands up here. The parks out here, it's a little more faded, you can see. A little more intense soil burn severity right here in the southern end with that really super dense mixed conifer that's in that area. But overall, kind of typical or even a little bit lighter than what we see for some of these fires. And the reason for that is that fire moved so damn quickly through these acres. It was really moving so rapidly that it didn't have a lot of time to sit there and cook and bake those soils. So this is just kind of an example of this mosaic of high soil burn severity and moderate soil burn severity. You can see lots of damage there, the overstory as well as cooking the soil, but moderate throughout some of the other areas. We have this area is really, it might have killed vegetation, but it really didn't necessarily destroy the soil structure. So, what kinds of things do we do? Does that bear team recommend? Remember, these are the things we're trying to get before that first storm, before that first rain, or before that snow starts to melt. These are some of the activities that we have. Sometimes we straw bomb, dropping straw in there just to get some organics in there to stop the water, to kind of take the energy out of the rains and help it kind of soak into the soil. Straw wattles and to hold soil in place that may be moving or slow down overland flow. Sometimes we have road closures that we're working on and some signage to protect the public if in areas where we haven't had the opportunity to mitigate hazard trees. We don't necessarily need to close all the roads and trails in a fire area, but it is important to post and inform the public of the risks that are in some of those areas. But there's a whole lot of things that we recommended for trail stabilization. Some hazard tree removal, usually pretty limited under the bear teams. Cultural site seeding, there was a lot of art sites that we went and scattered seed around for a couple of reasons. One, archaeological sites are kind of hidden generally by a lot of vegetation. As soon as the vegetation is removed, these arc sites pop out, and then individuals can go and fiddle with them. I don't know, try and see if they can find productive points or potsherds, and want to leave those things intact. We also so we're doing that to kind of hide them, the sites again. Another reason that we see them is just for soil stability. When we get those overland flows, we want the soil to be stable. If it has some veg on there with some native seed, it can kind of slow any overland flow that's occurring and stop those projectile points and potsherds and any of the other evidence there from being pushed further down the slope. So keep them in sight. We also talked about those cool cactus, the pedio cactus. We did seeding around the pedio cactus. That's because if post-fire, they may or may not have been destroyed by the fire, but if they're still there after the fire, cheatgrass can move in, and that's a competitor against the pedio cactus. So we want to give those cool listed cactuses their chance of thriving moving forward. Third step is burned area rehabilitation, BAR money. There's usually a little bit more BAR money available. Both BEAR and BAR are sitting in DC kind of waiting for us when these incidents break out so that we can get access to that money pretty quickly. We have gotten BEAR money. We put it all on the ground. We're waiting to receive BAR money any day now. We'll be putting that in on the ground and through a couple of different things. Usually that has to do with road repair, fences so that our ranching community can manage their livestock effectively, are a couple of things that we try to do with some of those BAR funds. We can also stabilize streams. We've got some activities up in North Canyon. It was the only place on the North Kaibab that had like running water and trout, native trout. Absolutely got nuked. We're going to have to go back and do some of that work in there under the BAR program to try and get that system to be able to hold water again. Now we're going to talk about the next step, that fourth step, and this is disaster recovery, post-fire disaster recovery. So the first few slides, we talked about total burn severity, and you saw that kind of mixed with a whole lot of low or unburned areas. A different story when it comes to vegetation condition. We have satellites that fly over and give us something called ravage. That's the layers of how we kind of assess the vegetation effects. You can see something similar in white sage, where only so much effects in the center with regards to areas that have been burned previously. But those areas that did not burn previously had pretty heavy effects. So down here, a lot of ponderosa pine. Up here, a lot of pinyon juniper and pinyon juniper. So it's always important to lose some of that ponderosa pine. Dragon Bravo, a slightly different story. You see a lot more red in Dragon Bravo. Where it's red, we lost 75% or more of the trees. Where it's orange, we saw that means there's 50% more or more of the trees that were lost. So across Dragon Bravo, you can see a lot of trees that were gone, very destructive. It's going to take a long time and a lot of work to kind of get that system on a trajectory towards full recovery. So disaster recovery is that work that we're talking about. That is really getting this thing on a trajectory towards restoration, towards a properly functioning system again. So it's long-term. The money's not sitting in Washington, D.C. for us. This is funding that has to be asked for specifically. We're currently working with Senator Kelly's office and Senator Diego's office, as well as Eli Crane's office, to get some specific legislation to work on not just the National Park Service side, but also the National Forest System side to get some of these funds to get some of this work done. We've got kind of four classes of projects that we're working on. The first is the first environmental assessment that we're working on. This is an image of white sage is hazard tree mitigation. Now, during that suppression repair, that the first block, we did a lot of hazard tree mitigation. We had a lot of incident management teams cycling through over the course of that, and a lot of heavy equipment to get roads safe for firefighters and the public, and to get trails safe for firefighters and the public. We got as much of that as I've ever seen done on an incident in the West. So that's something that we're very proud of, to get all that work done to make these resources available to our public again. Moving forward, we have a lot of additional hazard tree mitigation that we want to get working on. This is kind of a map to show some of those units that we'll be doing hazard tree mitigation on. That's just cutting standing dead trees and getting them out of there so that they don't fall on roads, so they don't fall on trails, they don't fall on infrastructure, fence lines, or people. In addition to that, we are working on some plans for some proposed fuel breaks to allow us to do prescribed fire on a larger scale moving forward. The second piece of that disaster recovery includes hazardous fuel reduction. Sometimes there's such high concentrations of fuels that we're really concerned about kind of a reburn once those jackstraw messes those trees start to fall. We use kind of site prep for planting, clearing some areas to allow us to reforest, to get some trees in the ground. We're not planting every acre out there. There's some tools that we're working with our Ecological Restoration Institute out of Northern Arizona University. Has a tool that tells us where the best places are to plant, because a lot of times there's nearby ponderosa pine trees that are going to seed in. We don't need to waste our time planting there. But there are tens of thousands of acres still that are so far away from existing ponderosa pines that may allow us to seed in that it's going to take some reforestation. The seed has to be locally adapted. So this year we're looking at trees, seeing which trees are spitting out pine cones. We're going to send people up there to climb, gather those cones, bring them down, send them to Idaho to Lucky Peak Nursery or to another nursery in northern New Mexico, start growing seedlings for us so we can start planting millions of seedlings over the course of the next many years. A couple of other pieces of work that we have to do. This image up here is that North Canyon I told you about with some of those native trout in it. It got absolutely, that's a good shot to show you how intense some of the fire effects there. So we're working on stabilizing North Canyon and restoring North Canyon to allow it to have suitable habitat for native trout again. And we also have some places where we're doing trail reconstruction and reroutes. The Arizona Trail is heavily affected by Dragon Bravo fire specifically. Some areas have just absolutely standing dead trees on both sides forever. Now, it improves the view if you're looking out over North Canyon, as long as you don't turn around. If you turn around, it's decimated. If you're looking out, you can now see Marble Canyon from the rim of the Kaibab Plateau. Not a desired effect, but that's still nice. So in some places we're going to mitigate those hazard trees and shore up the trail. In other places, it just makes more sense to move the Arizona Trail itself, because we can put the Arizona Trail back where some of those trees may be standing still. So we're working with the Arizona Trail Association. They're giving us a lot of great recommendations on how to move forward with that, as well as some developed site repairs. Some places were damaged. We lost a couple of structures, some infrastructure on National Forest System acres. But the work needs to go on. One of the things I'm most proud of on the Kaibab National Forest is it's one of the few frequent fire forests in the western United States that we actually manage towards a historic fire regime. So moving forward over the course of the next 5 years, if you see a colored polygon here, these are planned prescribed fire units. Each one of these represents a separate prescribed fire unit that we do manage putting fire on the ground on about a 10-year basis or approximately on the North Kaibab. So you can see, even though Dragon Bravo was big and it was in the news and it was a huge fire, the size of the prescribed fire program on the North Kaibab Ranger District is extremely progressive. It's something I'm very proud of, and we're managing towards allowing fire to play its natural role. So that's the work that we're doing on the North Kaibab with regards to our prescribed fire program. We also do have an active timber management program on the North Kaibab that we are working with our partners, large collaborative that is kind of associated with that forest restoration initiative on the Coconino and the Kaibab and the Tonto and the affected hickories, in order to restore structure, function, pattern, and process on these forests. And we're doing similar activities across the landscape on the North Kaibab Ranger District. But for now, we've had to kind of shift some of that, because the work that we're doing right now is a lot of hazard tree mitigation. We want to open those roads, we want to open those trails, we want to make these places safe again for our public. So these are actually hazard trees that have already been mitigated from the National Park Service acres as well as the National Forest System acres. All these, it's just a bunch of them. This isn't 1/10 of the problem we've been able to solve so far. We've got our hands really full for over the course of the next several years. And it's prescribed fire, vegetation management, because I don't know if you guys have seen the forecast for the summer. This is on the left is the seasonal temperature outlook. This is a 3-month forward-looking outlook for what we may have on our hands moving forward. You couldn't have placed the Colorado Plateau in that above average. We are looking at above average temperatures, and if you look at the figure on the right, that's the precipitation outlook. Average to below average on the precip side, especially looking through June. I haven't seen a whole lot of it. Right now, we're in that La Nina. It's looking like it might start transitioning over to an El Nino in later summer, maybe fall. But though that's so far out, I really can't make any forecast like that. So I don't want to be doom and gloom, but we need to be ongoing and managing these systems because this stuff can be right around the corner. So that's really all I had for you guys. I did want to thank you for your time and just kind of the take home is the Kaibab has been hit. We got knocked down. We're getting back up and we're doing everything that we can do to move these forests on track, to get these forests on track and move them on a trajectory towards restoration. I don't know if I have time for questions or okay. I don't know how long that took. If folks have questions, I'd be happy to take a swing and give them folks answers.
We have about 5 minutes for questions or so. Yeah.
Are there volunteer opportunities for that reforestation effort?
We are working on the question was, are there volunteer opportunities? And the best way for you to get involved is to reach out to the Grand Canyon Conservancy. That's kind of the NGO, the non-governmental organization that is going to be running a lot of those things. We do work with. I'm gonna work with local Boy Scout troops and Flagstaff. I've reached a lot of different groups and individuals have reached out to me, and I kind of point them over to GCC. That's kind of the best way to get involved. So Grand Canyon Conservancy, awesome group to work with.
Does the ash make the soil more fertile? Does your reforestation grow maybe a little more quickly because of that, or is it just not?
It's
You restate the question.
Yeah. So the question was, when we have this mineral ash, plants need nutrients in order to thrive. And we have that mineral ash that's on top of the soil. Does that help in fertility? And the answer is that the soils up there are deficient in nitrogen. They're deficient in phosphorus. There is some of that in there. It's usually far outweighed by the fact that the organic material that really helps hold the water and helps those plants actually grow really, really fast has been damaged. And so the water holding capacity of some of these soils has really been damaged. The origin of the soils on the north rim of the Grand Canyon is limestone, and it's really good at holding water, and it's actually quite productive. So the short answer is not necessarily. It may improve the mineral content and the fertility of that soil, but it's outweighed by the deleterious effects of the fire itself. We do we plant trees, and we have natural regeneration. I've seen this in response to the Schultz fire and some of these fires that have also happened in northern Arizona. And sorry if I'm talking, I should use the mic. Oftentimes, the natural regeneration just grows faster. Mother Nature's better planting trees than we are. Yeah.
Is the North Rim going to be open this year for the most part, everywhere, or what's that look like for this spring and summer?
Yeah, so I can speak most to the National Forest System, to the Kaibab National Forest. The Grand Canyon National Park released their plan for opening just like 2 days ago. So if you go to the park, they just released their plan, and it should be on the Grand Canyon the park's website. They are trying as hard as they can to open as much as they can as soon as possible. I'm really impressed at how hard that they're working. They're actually letting another contract right now. It's currently out for bid to do some more hazard tree mitigation to make more trails and roads safe. They're opening as much as they can, but for the Park Service, I would ask best to look for their website. The Kaibab National Forest, we just updated our closure map. We relook at our closure map about once a month. We are going to be, I believe, the order's not out yet, but within about another week or 2 weeks, the order's going to be out to lift all the closures except for some areas where we were decking some of those hazard trees. So we did have some areas in like Saddle Mountain Wilderness and North Canyon where we were closing some of those roads, not necessarily because we're concerned about the water washing away cars or trees falling on people, It's because I showed that ash flow that one ash flow that was there. We had a situation in the fall where a group of it was actually some volunteers that were working with us came and crossed the Hot Rock Valley Road. That ash flow happened and stranded them on kind of on the other side. So until we can kind of get around some of these erosion events, there may be some seasonal closures that occur. And I think House Rock Valley is most of that stuff, which is really down low. It's grass. But everything else on the top of the plateau is going to be open within a couple of weeks. In the back.
About soil burn severity and how much acreage will burn that very complexity. I'm going to get kind of idea about how much water is absorbed for each degree of severity. So if you go place other mills, water underground, how much goes to a low severity burn versus
Yeah, I guess I'm not a hydrologist. I have a hydrologist, and I wish Reba was here to give a way better answer than me. I don't have and I couldn't even venture a guess at that quantitative nature. I know that it matters not only as important as how much water comes down, it's how over that time period that water does come down. So if it all comes down, bam, right away, it's all going in the Colorado River. If it's spread out over a course of a few days, then it's has a lot more has a chance to kind of to infiltrate into the soil layers itself. I do know that I spent a lot of time walking a lot of these areas, and when we don't just look at a satellite image when we do this work. We go out, we dig soil pits, we spend a lot of time with trials. I spent a couple of days with my hydrologist out there with trials talking about hydrophobicity and I think even the areas that had the moderate areas when we were actually with the water dropper dropping waters in some of those spots, the hydrophobicity was already starting to break up, which is kind of cool. We were just out there a few weeks ago, so it's really neat to see how fast some of these systems can start to break down, and that soil can start to get structured again. And the fact that one of the best things we can do, honestly, the fact that we had is time. The fact that we had a very mellow monsoon was probably good for a lot of these systems. It just allowed the systems themselves, the bacteria, the critters, some of the roots to kind of start to recover in some of these areas. The fact that we got a horrendously poor snowpack up there is kind of helping our case just a little bit. We got a couple of storms in like October that were kind of nice, that weren't intense, but that's going to be helpful. So I see this system on a trajectory a little faster than some other systems and not just getting blown out yet. I have worked on a lot of, I will say just overall, I've worked on a lot of large fire, post-fire recovery projects in the West, in New Mexico and Arizona and Utah. And we're ahead of the curve on post-Dragon Bravo and White Sage more than any other fire that I've been on. And that's something that the Kaibab is really, really proud of. We got to jump on this thing right away as soon as we realized we were going to have a couple of large events. We convened teams and started getting folks trained up so that they can really get the system on trajectory as soon as possible, which is something I'm really proud of. I don't think I did a very good job of answering your question. I'm sorry about that, but I did squeeze in another plug for the Kaibab.
This will be the last question.
You talked about satellites. Do you use drones as well?
Yes, actually. Give you another chance to talk about cool things that the Kaibab is doing. In Region 3 of the United States Forest Service, which has 11 national forests in it, the Kaibab has the number one drone program out of our region, and one of the leaders in the whole country. So we use drones, absolutely. We can't fly a drone over the entire Dragon Bravo. It's just too darn big. We can fly a few hundred acres at a time. I do know that just a month ago we did get a new Astro drone. It has a larger payload. It has 6 blades that we can fly a lot longer and we can fly a lot further, and to allow us to do that. Some of the things we've been doing with drones is monitoring our arc sites. You can walk around an arc site and you can see it. It's so much cooler to see the arc site and the effects from a drone, just because you get to get 100 feet up, you get to look right down on it, and you can kind of assess those effects a lot better. Another efficiency that we've had with drones is with the LiDAR scanner, those giant decks of wood that I showed you. Usually we have to measure those in order to sell them, and we do sell a lot of that wood. It's all ended up in Panguitch, Utah, and in Fredonia, which is awesome because the communities of Fredonia and Kanab were hit the economic toll that these small communities in southern Utah and northern Arizona took was very unfortunate. The impacts to the local economy, getting that wood to that mill, providing some local jobs. Last time I drove past that mill, there was like 22 cars in the parking lot, which means 22 people were working there. We use those drones to fly and assess the volume of those wood decks so that we can just sell them faster. I don't have to get my guys crawling over those piles of wood to measure them. I can just fly a drone over there, and it takes what would be 4 days of work. I get it done in the morning. So we're using drones to increase safety and effectiveness of the work that we're doing. And I think I'm out of time. I'd love to handle questions. I'll be around a little bit after the next break if you have anything else you wanted to handle, or just look me up, Patrick Moore on the Kaibab. Thanks, guys.
Great.